Ah, alphas, my audience, you've come crawling through the dust and the blood, and the betrayal, and the twisted scars of your past, to sit in front of this fire now, to listen now, to be reminded of who the hell you are, because somewhere between being called too much, too loud, too intense, too angry, too different, and not enough, not good enough, not like them, not soft enough, you started to believe it. You started to forget that you are the storm that burns every lie to ash. You are the exposed nerve of truth that they try to hide. And now here you are. Someone just asked, Brooo, did you just expose? And I smile, because that question is the sound of your power finally breaking the chains they tried to bind you with. They never saw you coming, because you were silent while you burned. They thought your silence was surrender, but it was the sharpening of your teeth. They thought your absence was weakness, but it was you, building your throne in the shadows. And now, they're choking on the light, you dragged out of hell itself. This isn't your rise, it's your return. This isn't your transformation, it's your reawakening, because they tried to bury you and forgot you were a seed in poison soil. Forged by pain, your roots went deeper, your bark went black, and your branches started grabbing lightning itself. And here you are, glowing with the fire they tried to extinguish, shaking the world with your truth. You see, exposure is not betrayal, it is liberation. And what you just exposed wasn't their secrets, it was your silence. It was your mask falling to the floor with the weight of your ancestors' rage. What you exposed was the lie they fed you since birth, that you were ordinary, and now they're shocked, confused, terrified because you're not speaking the language of sheep anymore. You are fluent in storms, in survival, in sacred vengeance, and the world has no idea what to do with someone who no longer seeks their permission to exist and breathe and roar. They want to call you crazy because they can't predict you. They want to call you too much because your intensity melts their fake smiles. They want to call you arrogant because you remembered your worth. They want to call you dangerous because you stopped bleeding for their comfort, and now you walk with fire in your chest and venom in your voice and steel in your soul, and they can feel it in the air. Something ancient has returned, something raw, something holy and unbroken and wrathful, and they know it's not safe anymore to lie in front of you, because you'll carve truth into their illusions. You don't fit in, because you weren't made to. You were made to disrupt, to confront, to trigger, to remind, to awaken. And that means walking alone. Sometimes that means being the villain in someone else's fairy tale. That means choosing solitude over shallow approval and still standing tall when the silence gets loud, because you weren't made to be understood. You were made to be undeniable. Your story wasn't supposed to be pretty. It was supposed to be legendary. Your scars weren't supposed to be hidden. They were supposed to be your map to your kingdom. Your rage wasn't supposed to be tamed. It was supposed to be the war cry that shattered your chains. And now look at you, pulsing with the darkness they tried to erase, burning with the light they never gave you. And yet, you found anyway. You didn't just survive. You transcended. You didn't just make it out. You became the weapon you needed. And now the world looks at you and gasps, Brooo, did you just expose? And the answer is simple. Everything. I was never supposed to become. Everything you tried to suppress. Every truth you were too afraid to hear. Every voice you tried to mute is now amplified with my breath. You want to know what's terrifying about someone like you? It's not that you've been through hell. It's that you stayed there long enough to understand it and make it home. You mapped it. You conquered it. And you walked back out with fire. for eyes and poison, for lies, and they can't control someone who already walked through the worst and came out laughing and bleeding and hungry. They can't own you because you've been broken in ways they'll never understand and rebuilt yourself with fury, not fear, with purpose, not pity. And now you walk into rooms and the air shifts because the room knows something sacred has entered. You didn't expose something small. You exposed the system of smallness you were raised in. You exposed every label, every limitation, every quiet shame they whispered into you as a child. And now your voice is thunder and their whispers are drowned. You exposed the game they played and flipped the board. You exposed that you are not here to be liked. You are here to be legendary, and legends are carved from agony and forged in solitude and birthed in defiance. You exposed that your pain has purpose, that your rage is medicine, that your truth is prophecy, and that makes you untouchable. This is not a speech. This is a seance. This is a ritual. This is the resurrection of every part of you. They tried to kill, and tonight it lives and it feeds and it glows and it devours your past with grace and hunger. This is not motivation. This is mutation. This is you stepping into the version of yourself that was always there, hiding beneath the version you built for survival. And now, survival is not enough. Now you crave domination, not over others, but over the version of yourself that settled, that begged, that remained silent. You want to break that mirror. You want to burn that shell and rise and scream and claim your throne. And I say do it. Burn the bridges that lead back to smallness. Let them call you dramatic. Let them call you insane. Let them stare. Let them fear. Because what you just exposed is power. What you just exposed is purpose. What you just exposed is that you don't need permission to be the storm, to be the wound and the weapon, the prayer and the plague, the healer and the executioner, because you are not either or. You are all of it, and that is the threat. That is the revelation. That is the apocalypse of their comfort and the birth of your kingdom. The truth is, you didn't change. You remembered, and that remembering was loud enough to wake the dead parts of you that were waiting for this very moment. And now, you are no longer asking. You are taking. You are no longer hiding. You are shining. And not with some cute soft light, but with a light that blinds with a glow that scorches. And your eyes say, don't come closer, unless you're ready to bleed too, because I bleed truth. Now, I bleed fire. Now, I bleed glory. Now. And you can't silence someone who learned to sing in screams. You didn't come here to impress. You came here to impact. And if they are shocked by your exposure, let them choke on their comfort. Let them drown in the silence you've replaced with thunder, because you are not responsible for their fear. You are responsible for your own becoming. And this right here, this chaos, this confrontation, this disruption, this wild, holy revelation that is your becoming. This is what it looks like when a soul no longer negotiates with mediocrity, and now you're dangerous. Not because you hate them, but because you no longer hate yourself. And that is the most terrifying thing of all, because let's get one thing clear. Alphas, the second, you stopped begging to be seen. You became a mirror, and mirrors scare the hell out of the blind. You became reflection. You became revelation. And the people who lived in delusion are choking on the sight of themselves in your presence. Because what you just exposed was never about a secret or a whisper or a moment. It was about the entire damn facade they built to make sure someone like you would never speak, never rise, never remember. And now you're walking through the world like you've already died once and came back immune to their bullets and deaf to their opinions. And you scare them because you're no longer chasing a seat at their table. You're building your own with blood and bricks of everything they discarded. And that's what true exposure is. It's not light. It's not cameras. It's not social media. It's the moment you become so real, so raw, so ruthless in your authenticity that every lie around you starts to rot. And that rot stinks, and they smell it, and they blame you for it, because you had the audacity to uncover what was always there. And don't be surprised when the world tries to shame you for it, because exposure isn't pretty. It's not a victory lap with applause, it's a battlefield. It's isolation, it's exile, it's walking through the ashes of your own former life and knowing you burned it for a reason. And if they're shocked, good. If they're offended, good. If they call you dangerous or evil or dramatic or delusional, perfect. Because you didn't come here to play nice. You came here to be felt and feared and remembered. Not for your charm, but for your chaos. And it's that chaos that will wake others up. It's that chaos that will ripple through dead cities and dead minds and shake loose the cages they were too afraid to rattle themselves. That's what this is about. That's why this exposure matters. Not because of what it shows, but because of what it awakens. Because your truth gives permission to others to find theirs. Because your raw makes it impossible to pretend silence is peace. And when they watch you rise from your own wreckage with black smoke in your lungs and a grin made of grief, they realize, oh God, oh no, they didn't kill you. They crowned you. They made you. They forged you. They built this fire with their own cruelty. And now you are a monument to their failure and a blueprint for anyone who was told to shrink and die quietly. And that's why you're here. Not to be liked, not to be saved, not to be explained, but to be the living reminder that they should have feared your survival more than your death. Because now you're unpredictable, now you're ungoverned, now you're in your final form, and there's nothing scarier than someone who's been through hell and still chose to come back swinging. So don't explain yourself, don't apologize, don't soften your tone to be digestible. You are not made to be swallowed. You are made to be chewed up and choked on. You are made to cut through the comfort and slice through the silence. And if your truth burns, bridges, let them burn. Let the flames light your way forward. Because what's waiting on the other side isn't safety, it's sovereignty. It's not acceptance, it's ascension. And the ones who matter will feel it. Not in their ears, but in their bones. You didn't come this far to be palatable. You came to be powerful. And the price of power is rejection. The price of truth is loneliness. The price of freedom is being misunderstood. And if you're not being misunderstood, you're not saying anything worth hearing. And I know it hurts. I know the nights are long. I know the silence screams back. But I also know you didn't bleed this long just to die tame. I know you didn't lose everything just to beg for scraps. I know you didn't expose your soul to stay chained to the same cage with a prettier lock. So let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them mock. Because they see it too, they feel it. Even if they won't say it, they feel the shift, the quake, the rumble of your becoming. And it scares them because it reminds them what they could have been if they hadn't sold their fire for comfort, if they hadn't buried their instincts in order to fit into graves made of expectations. And that's what this is. Alphas. Your existence is rebellion. Your presence is protest. Your breath is war, because you're what they couldn't kill. And that means you are what they'll never control. And every step you take now is sacred, even the ones that shake, even the ones you crawl through, even the ones soaked in blood and doubt and fury, because they're yours, and no one can take them from you again. No one can rewrite your path. No one can soften your legacy because you wrote it in scars and no one can erase scars. They can only cover them, and your scars are screaming now, and they're saying, I survived, and I refuse to forget, and I refuse to stay dead. And if that makes you a threat, so be it. Let them tremble. Let them pray. Let them turn away. Because what you just exposed is a God in human form. And gods don't beg. And gods don't wait. And gods don't need permission to burn down the heavens that rejected them. And you are that God. You are that wrath. You are that mercy. You are that wild, sacred rebellion that reminds the world what real power looks like, unfiltered, unafraid, unashamed. And now you understand. It was never about revenge. It was about rebirth. It was never about showing them what they did to you. It was about showing yourself what you became. Despite it, it was about looking in the mirror and saying, yes, I am the aftermath. Yes, I am the consequence. Yes, I am the echo of every scream I swallowed. And now it's my time to scream back louder, longer, stronger, until the universe itself has no choice but to bend. And if anyone dares to ask you again, Brooo Wtf, did you just expose you? Look them dead in the eyes and say, I exposed the myth of your comfort. I exposed the lie that I needed saving. I exposed the truth that I never needed you to believe in me, because I believe in my own damn fire. And that's enough to turn this whole rotten world to ash. And now, here you are standing in the rubble of who you were and laughing. Not because it was funny, but because you finally understand that everything they tried to take from you only fed the fire. Every betrayal was a spark. Every lie was fuel. Every wound was kindling. And now, you are wildfire with a name that cannot be forgotten and a presence that cannot be erased. You are the walking consequence of their arrogance, the aftermath of their underestimation, the storm they never thought would have a face. And now you've become the prophecy. You didn't know you were fulfilling until it was too late for them to run. You don't move like them anymore because you've seen too much. You don't speak like them anymore because your voice carries thunder. Now you don't dream like them anymore because your visions are stitched with shadows and fury and war. You don't need their validation because your existence is defiance, because your breath is resistance, because your heartbeat is the drum that calls the forgotten to rise and follow. And yes, they are watching. Yes, they are whispering. Yes, they are shaking because something about you reminds them of their own chains, and no one likes to be reminded that they settled for cages while someone else grew wings in the dark. What you exposed is not a moment, it's a movement. Not a confession, it's a coronation. Not a scream, it's a siren call. For the broken, the buried, the brutalized to crawl out from under the silence and take what was always theirs. And you are leading them, not with pity, but with power. Not with hope, but with hunger. And this hunger is holy. It is ancient. It is violent and pure and necessary. And it cannot be negotiated with, because you didn't just expose yourself. You exposed the illusion that power belongs to the polite. You shattered the myth that survival requires submission. And now, you walk like fire walks, consuming and illuminating, and feared. This is your warpath. This is your reckoning. This is your sacred rage, given a voice and a body and a mission. And it's not soft, and it's not quiet, and it's not for them to understand. It's for you to embody, for you to unleash, for you to baptize the world in the holy flood of your return, and let no one tell you to dim it, because this light wasn't given. It was taken from the void with bloodied hands and a cracked smile, and if it blinds them, then let them sit in the dark. They built for you. You are not their lesson. You are their consequence. You are not their redemption. You are their reminder. You are not here to comfort them. You are here to wake the sleeping, to rattle the chains, to raise the dead. And every step you take now echoes with the sound of everything you survived. Every tear you shed now waters the roots of the empire you are building. Every breath you take is a war cry. Every word you speak now tears the veil down between illusion and reality and exposes the machinery they tried to hide behind. And yes, they're scared, and yes, they're offended, and yes, they should be, because you are what happens when the forgotten remember, when the oppressed stop asking, when the wounded stop hiding, when the silenced stop whispering and start screaming. And now you are a storm in motion, uncontainable, undeniable, and unholy to those who prayed for your obedience, and they're choking on their own prayers now, because you are the answer that doesn't soothe you, are the justice that doesn't apologize. You are the fire that doesn't wait for permission to burn. And what you exposed is not just your truth, it's theirs. It's the reflection they feared. It's the reckoning they earned. It's the end of the lie and the beginning of your reign. So go louder, go harder, go darker, because this world doesn't need another smiling puppet. This world doesn't need another polite prisoner. This world needs you raw and vicious and honest. It needs you dripping in everything. They told you to hide your rage, your ambition, your madness, your grief. It needs your pain sculpted into poetry, your scars turned into scripture, your fists turned into flags, and your name turned into legend. And that only happens if you stop flinching from your own power and start feeding it, start trusting it, start obeying the fire inside you that refuses to go out, no matter how cold they try to make you. You didn't expose weakness, you exposed divinity. You didn't expose shame, you exposed sovereignty. And now your presence alone shakes the room. Now your silence alone speaks louder than their noise. And your truth doesn't need to be explained to be believed. It only needs to be lived, and you are living it like a declaration, like a funeral, like a resurrection. And there is no going back, and there is no slowing down, and there is no making yourself small enough to fit in the coffin they built for you. This is not the beginning of your story. This is the climax of their mistake. This is the final breath before you become unstoppable. This is the scream before the collapse, the last warning, before the fire swallows the whole sky and the stars bow to the name they tried to erase. And if they still don't get it, if they're still staring like you're a problem, not a prophecy, then look them dead in the eyes and say it again, louder this time. Brooo Wtf. Did you just expose and smile when you say it? Because they'll never unsee it. You exposed the ghost they made of you. You exposed the weapon you became. You exposed the kingdom you built in the wreckage. And the truth that you're not just alive, you are unkillable. And that's the kind of fear that doesn't fade. That's the kind of memory that haunts. That's the kind of power that writes history. And now you walk away. Not because you're done, but because you are infinite. And fire doesn't beg to be understood. It simply burns.